Move now. My daughter needs this window seat, and I won't ask again. People like you should already know your place." The words cut through the air at Gate A7 of Denver International Airport, sharp enough to silence the crowd. Heads turned instantly. About 25 passengers. Phones came up. A college student hit record on her TikTok livestream. Dr. Amara Johnson glanced up from her boarding pass, her Northwestern University hoodie suddenly feeling flimsy against more than just the airport's cold air. At 42, she'd learned to find calm in small moments. This was not one of them. A tall blonde woman in designer athleisure loomed over her, holding her 8-year-old daughter's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. Her voice carried across the waiting area, making sure no one missed the confrontation. "Did you hear me?" she demanded, stepping closer. "That's my daughter's seat. I paid extra for that window." Amara remained seated, boarding pass resting in her lap. "Ma'am, I think there's a mistake. My ticket shows one for A as well." The woman laughed sharply. "I don't care what discount site you used. I booked this seat 3 weeks ago through my Platinum membership on TikTok." Zoe Monroe adjusted her phone for a better angle. The viewer count climbed over 800 people now. Comments rolled in faster than she could read them. "This is why I usually fly private," the woman announced, projecting her voice. "These discount passengers have no respect for people who pay full price." At the counter, gate agent Jessica Martinez glanced up nervously. At 23, she'd dealt with angry travelers before, but nothing like this. The system showed both passes valid for the same seat, a glitch that happened maybe twice a year. "Mrs. Mitchell, let me check again," Jessica offered. "Don't check anything," Karen Mitchell snapped. "Just remove her. I have every right to that seat, and she knows it." Amara's phone buzzed, screen lighting up with a priority override notice before she silenced it. Her expression stayed calm, almost meditative. "Some people think they're entitled to everything." Karen went on, raising her voice for the crowd. "I work hard for my money. My husband's law firm doesn't hand out charity." Her daughter sniffled. Karen swept her up theatrically. "Look what you're doing to my baby. She has flight anxiety." The window helps her cope. "I understand your daughter's needs," Amara replied gently. "Maybe we can talk with the gate agent together. Don't ma'am me with that fake politeness." Karen shot back. "I know what this is. You saw a white family with money and decided to take what doesn't belong to you." The words hung heavy. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably. Others started recording. Zoe's livestream surged over 1,200 viewers now. Karen pressed on. "I don't know what program got you this ticket, but my tax dollars pay for real seats. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in cargo with the other packages." The insult hit its target. Tamara's jaw tightened, though she stayed silent. "Please." Jessica intervened, stepping forward. "Let me call my supervisor to resolve this." Finally, Karen said, triumphant. She turned to the crowd. "Can you believe this? I pay premium, follow the rules, and I'm treated like the problem. This is discrimination against paying customers." An older man in a suit nodded. A mother of two whispered, "Poor little girl." Amara quietly opened her leather portfolio, checking something inside with deliberate calm. "I want her banned from this airline permanently," Karen declared, pointing at Amara like evidence. "People need to learn they can't just take what belongs to their betters." The phrase landed heavily. Even her supporters hesitated. "This is getting ugly," Zoe whispered into her phone. Nearly 1,500 people were now watching live. Jessica returned, voice unsteady. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've called our supervisor. He'll be here soon." "Good," Karen said, satisfied. She looked down at Amara once more. "Accusations of racism won't get you upgrades. This is America. We reward hard work and respect, not attitude." Amara closed her portfolio with a soft click. When she raised her eyes, they carried not anger, but a calm certainty. "You're absolutely right," she said evenly. "America rewards hard work and respect. We'll see how that plays out." The clock above the gate ticked down 16 minutes until boarding. Marcus Thompson, the gate's supervisor, approached with the steady assurance of a man who'd handled thousands of disputes. At 48, he'd seen everything from medical crises to missed connections. This looked like another entitled passenger incident that needed firm control. What seems to be the problem here? He asked, eyes settling on Amara as the likely source. Years of experience had trained him to identify trouble fast. Karen's face lit with triumph. Finally, someone with authority. This woman refuses to give up my daughter's seat. I paid extra for one for A, and she insists it's hers too. She was sitting there when I arrived. An elderly passenger added quickly, helping the narrative along. Just sitting like she owned the place. Marcus looked at Jessica, who held up both boarding passes helplessly. Sir, the system assigned them both to one for A. It's a computer error from this morning's update. Well, that's simple, Marcus said, turning to Amara with authority. Ma'am, you'll need to accept another seat. Mrs. Mitchell clearly has priority. The assumption landed with weight. Karen hadn't been there first, she'd arrived 20 minutes later. But Marcus' tone reshaped perception into fact. I was seated first, Amara replied calmly. But I'm happy to work with you to resolve this properly, Mum. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Marcus said, already losing patience. We have a full flight to board. He checked his watch. 13 minutes. Security Officer Miguel Rodriguez stepped in, radio crackling at his side. Raised voices and cameras had drawn him across the terminal. 20 years on the job had sharpened his instincts for problems ready to explode. Everything under control? He asked, resting a hand near his radio. Officer, perfect timing, Karen said in relief. This woman is disturbing everyone and refusing basic policy. My daughter has special needs, and she's making her anxiety worse. Rodriguez assessed the scene. A polished white family with a distressed child. A black woman sitting quietly alone. A swelling crowd with phones out. The pattern was familiar. Mum, he said to Amara, please cooperate with staff. These situations resolve faster when everyone follows procedure. Meanwhile, Zoe's livestream viewer count soared past 3,000. Comments scrolled like a rushing current. Screenshots spread across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook within minutes. This is what I mean, Karen declared, performing for the audience. Hardworking families get pushed aside while people who didn't earn their seats get protected. She lifted Madison higher, making sure her child's face was visible. The girl had stopped crying, but stared wide-eyed at the chaos. Tell the nice lady she needs to move. Baby, Karen coached softly. Mommy paid for your window seat. Confused but obedient, Madison repeated. Please move from my seat. Sympathy coalesced around her. A passenger muttered, poor kid shouldn't have to deal with this, another said. Just give the family the seat. I don't know what government program gave you this ticket. Karen pressed on, emboldened. But taxpayers deserve respect. Maybe you'd be more comfortable in coach where you belong. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Even some supporters flinched. Marcus leaned closer to Amara. Look, we can move you to an aisle seat in row 27. Same flight, same arrival. Just a different view. I understand the inconvenience, Amara replied, opening her leather portfolio. Organized papers showed preparation. But perhaps we should consult regional operations before making permanent changes, Mum. I am the operations authority here, Marcus snapped slightly. No need to involve corporate in a simple accommodation. Karen sensed victory. Officer Rodriguez, please escort her. My daughter's medication requires window access. It's medically necessary. Rodriguez reached for his radio. Control, this is Rodriguez at Gate A7. Requesting escort support for non-compliant seat dispute. Copy that, came the reply. Additional units en route if needed. Amara's phone buzzed again, multiple urgent notifications. She silenced them quickly. Board meeting moved. CEO override requested. Operations awaiting her response. If you're handling personal business, Marcus said pointedly, perhaps take those calls elsewhere. We need to resolve this seating issue now. The crowd pressed tighter, phones multiplying. Someone started a Facebook live stream titled Airport Karen Drama Live. Another passenger tweeted, insane scene at Denver Airport. Entitled woman won't give up kid's seat. Hashtag airport drama. I want her banned from this airline permanently, Karen declared, pointing at Amara like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. This kind of selfish, disruptive behavior ruins travel for everyone. We all have places to be. A businessman in a tailored suit nodded vigorously. Absolutely right. Some people have no consideration for others, ma'am, Rodriguez said to Amara, his voice heavy with authority. You have exactly two choices. Accept the reassigned seat voluntarily and we move on. Or we continue this discussion in airport security. Either way, this crowd needs to disperse so the flight can board on time. Behind the counter, Jessica shifted uneasily. She had called Marcus to help calm the conflict, not turn the gate into a public courtroom. Maybe I should contact our customer service supervisor, she suggested softly. Absolutely not, Marcus cut in, firm. This is a straightforward operational decision. The passenger needs to comply with policy. We're not involving anyone else. Karen's triumph felt nearly complete. Authority figures had sided with her. The crowd supported her. Social media documented her victory. Even her daughter played the part of innocent victim perfectly. Some people think they can take whatever they want, she announced, addressing the gate like a politician on the campaign trail. But this is America. We believe in fairness, respect, and following rules. Isn't that right? The crowd murmured their agreement. Karen had framed herself as the defender of order against chaos, rules against anarchy. Amara closed her portfolio with careful precision. When she stood, her movement carried such quiet confidence that every eye turned to her. For one suspended moment, the noise stopped. You're absolutely right about America, she said, her voice steady and clear. We do believe in fairness and in following rules. All of them. She walked toward the gate desk, not retreating, but advancing with purpose. Jessica, she said evenly, her tone commanding now, please contact your regional operations manager. We need to review some important policies. The clock showed 11 minutes until boarding, but Amara's words carried the weight of a different countdown. Final boarding call for Flight 847 to Chicago, the agent announced over the intercom. All passengers prepare for immediate boarding. The clock struck 10 minutes. The crowd pressed closer, phones raised like digital torches, expecting to witness Amara's final humiliation. Instead, she moved with deliberate calm to Jessica's desk. Mom, where are you going? Marcus called after her, irritation cracking his professional mask. We're not finished. You need to comply with the reassignment. Passengers muttered in agreement. Just take the other seat. Stop being difficult. Amara reached into her portfolio and withdrew a slim folder. From it, she placed 3 items on the counter: a business card, an identification badge, and a corporate access key card. Jessica's eyes widened as she read. Her face shifted from confusion to recognition to shock. The blood drained from her cheeks so fast she gripped the counter for support. Oh my God, she whispered. Miss Johnson, we had no idea. What's going on? Marcus demanded, stepping forward. What is she showing you? Don't let her distract you. Jessica raised the card with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked as she read aloud. Dr. Amara Johnson, Chief Executive Officer, SkyWest Regional Airlines. The words hit the crowd like an explosion. Conversations froze. Phones stilled in midair. The energy that had built toward Amara's downfall flipped in an instant, surging in the opposite direction. That's impossible, Karen sputtered, her voice shrinking. The confidence that had carried her through 20 minutes of confrontation began splintering under pressure. She's lying. COs don't fly, coach. But even as she spoke, Karen was frantically typing into her phone. SkyWest CEO. Search results loaded instantly. The first image showed Dr. Amara Johnson at a corporate podium, wearing a sharp business suit and the same calm, intelligent expression she wore now. Holy, someone in the crowd breathed. She's actually the CEO. No way, another whispered. This can't be real. Zoe's livestream exploded. Viewer count rocketed past 8,000 as she whispered urgently into her mic. Guys, this woman is literally the CEO of the airline. Karen just spent 20 minutes attacking the CEO of the entire company. This is insane. Comments flooded across the screen faster than anyone could follow. No way. Karen is finished. Best twist ever. Save everything. She's about to get destroyed. Marcus snatched the business card from Jessica's hands, examining it like proof of alien existence. The SkyWest logo gleamed in gold. The paper was high quality, and the contact details listed a direct number to corporate headquarters in Utah. Miss Johnson. Marcus stammered, his authority collapsing instantly. We didn't know. Why didn't you say who you were? This could have been avoided. Amara's reply was measured, professional, and devastatingly simple. I shouldn't have to state my title to be treated with basic dignity. Every passenger deserves respect, no matter their status, wealth, or appearance. The meaning hung heavy in the air. She had tested them, their employees, their policies, their basic humanity, and they had failed. Rodriguez instinctively stepped back, his hand moving away from his radio as though it burned. In 20 years of security work, he had never imagined threatening to detain the CEO of a major airline. His career flashed before his eyes. "Ma'am, Miss Johnson, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding," he said, sweat forming on his brow despite the freezing air conditioning. "I was following standard procedures." "Standard procedures?" Amara repeated, her voice calm but sharp. "That is exactly what needs review." Karen stood frozen, her daughter still balanced on her hip, staring at Amara as if she were a stranger. The righteous fire that had fueled her confrontation drained away, leaving her pale and speechless. "But you're in a hoodie," she stammered weakly, as though casual clothing disqualified someone from leadership. "CEOs wear suits. They fly first class. They don't sit in coach. What does a CEO look like?" Amara asked quietly. The words struck like a challenge, forcing everyone present to confront their own assumptions. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, with no safe answer. Jessica finally found her voice, trembling under the weight of her mistake. "Miss Johnson, I'm so sorry. The system glitch this morning affected several flights. I should have called management sooner. I should have handled this differently." "You followed your training exactly," Amara said, her tone unexpectedly gentle. "The failure wasn't yours. It was systemic. That's why I run these evaluations." She turned to the crowd, her voice carrying with natural authority. "This was an unscheduled audit of our customer service protocols. These reviews show us how employees and policies treat passengers when they believe no one important is watching." The words settled like snow over the crowd. Every bias, every judgment, every assumption had been witnessed by the person with ultimate power over the airline. "This is a setup," Karen blurted desperately, grasping for any excuse. "You planned this whole thing. It's entrapment. It's not fair. I intended to fly home quietly after a leadership conference," Amara replied calmly. "I didn't plan for you to provide such a thorough demonstration of the very issues we need to address in this industry." Meanwhile, Zoe's livestream had become a global stage. The hashtag CEO Revenge trended nationwide within minutes. The video spread like wildfire, shared across millions of screens. Marcus tried to salvage his career, his words tumbling out like a drowning man's last gasps. "Miss Johnson, I was only following procedure for seat disputes. I couldn't know your role." "Surely you understand, Marcus," Amara interrupted softly. "You assumed I was the problem without checking the facts. You supported Mrs. Mitchell's demand on what basis?" The question landed with surgical precision. Everyone already knew the answer. He had judged based on appearance and assumptions. There was no defense. The complaint seemed legitimate," Marcus muttered, sweat running down his face. "Which complaint?" Amara asked coldly. "Her demand that I move, or my request to resolve a system error through proper channels?" Marcus had no answer. The silence exposed the weakness of his decision. Karen's phone buzzed urgently. A message from her husband read, "David here. I just saw the video. Call me now. This is bad. Don't say another word." Her face went white. The live stream had reached her professional circle. Screenshots were likely already circulating among Denver's legal community. Her husband's law firm, Peterson Mitchell and Associates, had ties across the city's corporate world. "Please," Karen begged, her voice cracking. "I didn't know who you were. I was only trying to protect my daughter's seat. Can't we just forget this? I'll apologize publicly." "Mrs. Mitchell," Amara replied, her tone steady but colder than anger. "Forgetting would betray every passenger who faces discrimination without the resources. I have to challenge it. This cannot be ignored." The confrontation had revealed uncomfortable truths about how the system functioned and failed. Amara turned to Jessica. "Please upgrade Mrs. Mitchell and her daughter to first class. Madison shouldn't suffer because of today's events, and she'll be more comfortable away from this crowd. But ma'am, Jessica protested, shocked. After everything that just happened, a child isn't responsible for the failures of adults. Amara said firmly, Madison deserves to enjoy her flight and remember that people can rise above their worst moments. The unexpected grace stunned the crowd. Karen's eyes welled with tears, not of defiance, but of shame and bewilderment. Amara's tone shifted, taking on the weight of undeniable authority. However, we do need to address the larger implications of what happened here today. She opened her tablet, revealing a corporate dashboard filled with live data, performance metrics, and operational controls no ordinary passenger could access. SkyWest Regional operates 2,347 flights each day across 43 states. We carry over 43 million passengers annually, generating $2.3 billion in revenue. Our employee policies explicitly forbid discrimination, and our service standards require equal treatment regardless of appearance or perceived status. The numbers were not just statistics, they were weapons. Each one underscored the scale of power Karen had inadvertently challenged. Mrs. Mitchell, Amara said, scanning the tablet, I see your husband's firm, Peterson Mitchell and Associates, handles about $4.7 million annually in legal work for our insurance and liability cases. Karen's face went pale. Her behavior was no longer just personal. It was now entangled with her family's professional livelihood. I also see, Amara continued, that you've been a SkyWest frequent flyer for 6 years, with substantial corporate bookings tied to your husband's firm. She raised her eyes to meet Karen's. That means this interaction will now become part of our corporate training materials, and your conduct today violated multiple sections of our passenger agreement. The clock showed 8 minutes to boarding, but for Karen, time had frozen. What does that mean? She whispered. Amara's expression remained calm, professional, and terrifying in its certainty. It means we're going to have an important discussion about accountability, consequences, and how people treat others when they believe no one is watching. The gate area was silent now, broken only by the hum of airport machinery and the quiet buzz of recording phones, capturing what would soon become one of the most viral incidents in aviation history. The glow of Amara's tablet illuminated her face as she pulled up deeper layers of corporate data. Each tap revealed another level of authority Karen had recklessly provoked. Let me give you some context, Amara said, her voice steady, the cadence of someone used to addressing powerful boardrooms. SkyWest Regional doesn't just run flights, we are the backbone of American regional aviation. She turned the screen outward, displaying a live operational map. At this moment, 847 of our aircraft are in the air, carrying 127,000 passengers. We employ 23,000 people nationwide. Our on-time performance impacts connections for American, United, Delta, and Alaska. These weren't mere numbers, they were proof of reach, influence, and consequences stretching far beyond one gate. Mrs. Mitchell, Amara continued, bringing up another feed. Your behavior today was witnessed by over 12,000 live viewers and recorded by multiple devices. That footage is now permanent evidence stored in our legal archives under FAA Regulation 91.11, which governs passenger conduct. Karen's phone buzzed again. A message from her husband: stop talking. Don't say another word. The video is everywhere. Our insurance contracts are with SkyWest. Her hands trembled as she read. The scope of her personal and professional downfall was becoming undeniable. I need to call my husband, Karen whispered. Of course, Amara said smoothly. David Peterson and I have met several times at conferences. He's an excellent attorney. I'm sure he'll advise you on how personal behavior and professional relationships often intersect. The casual mention of his first name sent fresh shockwaves through Karen. Amara not only knew about the firm, she had connections within her community. Marcus stepped forward, desperation cracking through his voice. Ms. Johnson, with respect, this was an unfortunate misunderstanding. Surely we can resolve this internally, without involving corporate policy, Marcus, Amara said. Glancing at her tablet, you've been a gate supervisor for 7 years. In that time, How many disputes have you resolved in favor of passengers who appeared to have less economic status? The question cut like a blade. Marcus knew any truthful answer would reveal a pattern that stretched far beyond today. I don't keep track of those details, he said weakly. We do, Amara replied, pulling up another record. Every complaint, every seat reassignment, every upgrade, it's all tracked. Your data shows a 73% bias toward passengers perceived as higher status. Today's decision fits perfectly into that pattern. Marcus swallowed hard. The evidence was undeniable. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably, realizing his own interventions were likely just as compromised. Officer Rodriguez, Amara began. Amara addressed Rodriguez before he could speak. Airport security interactions are jointly logged by TSA and airline databases. Your threat to escort me for non-compliance will be reviewed by your supervisors and ours. The net of accountability was closing around everyone involved. Zoe's livestream had climbed past 15,000 viewers. The comments buzzing. She's dismantling them piece by piece. This is a master class in authority. Karen picked the wrong person. Let's go over the violations, Amara continued, pulling up the airline's passenger conduct policy. Section 14.7 prohibits harassment, intimidation, or discriminatory behavior toward other passengers. Mrs. Mitchell, your remarks about people like you and your comments about cargo areas clearly qualify. Karen's face twisted. I didn't mean those weren't meant to be racist. I was just frustrated about the seat. Intent and impact both matter in policy enforcement. Amara replied, your frustration does not erase the discriminatory language or its effect on others. She tapped again. Section 12.3 covers disruption of operations. Your demand for my removal, your call for security, and the disturbance you created delayed boarding for 140 passengers. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. What happens now? Standard enforcement includes temporary or permanent travel restrictions across our network, Amara said evenly. Given our code share agreements, that affects roughly 78% of domestic flights. The weight of those words hit Karen like a physical blow. Her husband's career required constant travel. A ban would be ruinous, however, Amara went on. I believe education is often better than punishment. You have a choice. She turned the tablet toward Karen, showing two options. Option A, standard enforcement, which means an 18-month travel restriction and a report to TSA. Option B, enrollment in our dignity and travel education program, 40 hours of bias training, plus service as an advocate for respectful passenger behavior. Karen stared at the screen, stunned that redemption was even possible. The education program involves speaking at training sessions, appearing in customer service videos, and promoting respectful treatment of all passengers. Amara explained, you want me to be a spokesperson for not being racist? Karen asked, bewildered. I want you to be a spokesperson for treating people with dignity. Amara corrected. Your experience today, both your mistakes and your growth, can help thousands learn better ways of interacting. Jessica looked on in awe. She had expected harsh punishment, maybe firings. Instead, she was witnessing leadership turning conflict into reform. For our staff, Amara said. Turning to Marcus and the others, this event will become mandatory training material. Marcus, you'll be reassigned to customer service education while completing bias recognition training. Your performance review will depend on measurable improvement. Marcus nodded quickly, relieved to be reassigned rather than dismissed. Jessica, Amara continued. You handled a nearly impossible situation with professionalism. You'll receive more training in conflict resolution. But your performance was not the failure here. The live stream audience watched in stunned silence as real-time accountability unfolded, not punishment for spectacle's sake, but systemic reform. Mrs. Mitchell, Amara said. Turning back to Karen, your daughter is watching. What example do you want her to see when adults make mistakes? Karen looked down at Madison, whose wide eyes reflected both confusion and dawning understanding. I choose the education program, Karen said finally, her voice steadier than before. I want to change. I want Madison to see that people can learn and do better. Good, Amara said, noting it on her tablet. You'll receive details within 48 hours. The first session begins next week. She turned to the crowd, addressing everyone. For those who witnessed this incident, I hope you remember every passenger deserves dignity. Airlines serve everyone, regardless of appearance, accent, or status. The clock showed 5 minutes to boarding, but the real journey had already begun, the transformation of punishment into opportunity, conflict into education, and power into change. Ladies and gentlemen, Jessica announced over the intercom, her voice firm now, we'll begin boarding Flight 847 shortly. Thank you for your patience during this important discussion. Amara closed her tablet and looked straight into Zoe's still streaming camera. Change begins one interaction at a time, she said softly. Today we chose education over punishment, growth over vindictiveness. That's how strong our systems are built. The gate area filled with quiet conversations as passengers absorbed what they had just witnessed. It wasn't the spectacle of destruction they had expected. It was something far more powerful, justice that created possibility rather than only consequences. Karen held Madison close, realizing her daughter had just seen accountability and redemption modeled through principled leadership instead of vindictive power. 3 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Karen Mitchell stood before a conference room of 200 SkyWest employees at the Denver Training Center, her voice steady as she addressed them. Madison sat in the front row, happily coloring in an aviation-themed workbook she had carried ever since meeting Dr. Amara. I want to show you what unconscious bias looks like, Karen said, clicking to a slide of her own face from that viral airport video. This is me, 3 months ago, making assumptions about another passenger because of her race, her appearance, and my misplaced sense of entitlement. The audience sat in silence as she played a carefully edited segment of the live stream. The voice on the screen demanding, dismissive, cruel was a stark contrast to the humble, reflective woman now speaking. I convinced myself I was protecting my daughter, Karen continued. In reality, I was teaching her that some people matter more than others. I was wrong, completely and inexcusably wrong. In the back of the room, Amara watched quietly. The program had exceeded even her expectations. Karen had become one of the most effective facilitators, precisely because her change felt authentic, not performative. Within 6 weeks of the Denver incident, the Dignity in Travel program had launched across all SkyWest operations. The results spoke for themselves. Passenger complaints about discriminatory treatment had dropped by 30% system-wide. Employee satisfaction scores had risen by 12%. Most importantly, the service equity gap had narrowed significantly. Marcus Thompson raised his hand. Once reassigned to customer service education, he now described the work as the most meaningful of his career. Karen, how do you handle the online criticism? People still share that video and say awful things. The criticism reminds me that actions have consequences, Karen answered honestly. But the positive messages I get from families who've had better travel experiences make it worth it. My embarrassment matters less than lasting improvement. Madison glanced up from her coloring and smiled at her mother. At just 8 years old, she was already fascinated by aviation, inspired by the junior pilot wings Amara had given her. She talked constantly about becoming a pilot one day. Jessica Martinez, now promoted to gate supervisor after advanced conflict training, stood to add her perspective. The new policies have made our jobs easier, not harder. When respect and dignity are part of our performance standards, good decisions come naturally. The reforms were comprehensive. Every passenger interaction was reviewed for fairness. Bias training was mandatory for all customer-facing employees. Anonymous reporting systems allowed passengers to flag discrimination without fear. Most importantly, Amara said, speaking for the first time that session, we've shown that corporations can choose growth over defensiveness. When confronted with systemic failures, a slide behind her displayed industry-wide adoption. 47 airlines had introduced similar dignity policies based on SkyWest's model. The International Air Transport Association had created new inclusion standards. 3 nations had already updated their aviation service regulations. The ripple extended beyond aviation. Harvard Business School had written a case study on crisis leadership. The U.S. Congressional Subcommittee on Transportation had invited Amara to testify. Federal guidelines were now being rewritten with these reforms in mind. "Karen," Amara asked, "you've spoken to over 3,000 employees across multiple companies. What response surprised you most?" Karen thought for a moment. "It's not always as dramatic as my story, but so many people confess moments when they acted out of bias without realizing it. These training sessions become spaces for honesty, healing, and change." Meanwhile, Zoe Monroe, the student whose live stream captured the original confrontation, had transformed her viral footage into a documentary series on social justice and accountability. Her senior thesis explored how social media could drive systemic change, rather than just public shaming. The series, When Power Meets Accountability, had been purchased by Netflix and featured the Denver incident as a central case study. In Transformative Leadership, Dr. Johnson, an employee, asked, "How do you measure success for this program?" "3 ways," Amara answered. "First, equity in passenger experiences, ensuring all travelers are treated fairly. Second, employee development, whether staff are actually growing in cultural competency. Third, industry influence, tracking how many other organizations adopt these principles." Her final slide showed the numbers: an 89% approval rating from participants, a 23% improvement in cross-cultural service scores, and adoption by nearly a third of major U.S. airlines. The session ended with Madison proudly presenting her finished coloring book to the group. On the cover, a purple crayon message read, "Everyone flies together." As the room emptied, Karen approached Amara with quiet determination. "Dr. Johnson, I want to expand this program beyond airlines into hotels, restaurants, retail. Everywhere people make assumptions about customers." "That's an excellent idea," Amara replied. "But remember, lasting change happens step by step. We've proven the model in aviation. Now we can demonstrate its value across industries." 3 months ago, Gate A7 had been the site of humiliation and bias. Now it symbolized something far greater: the possibility that individual accountability could drive institutional transformation. The victory wasn't only Karen's redemption or SkyWest's reforms. It was proof that organizations could choose education over defensiveness, growth over punishment, and systemic improvement over crisis management. And stories like Amara's were no longer just records of discrimination. They had become catalysts for change. These real-life stories were transforming industries one dignified interaction at a time. A year later, Dr. Amara Johnson received an unexpected letter at her corporate office. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, the kind that showed every word had been chosen with intention. "Dear Dr. Johnson," it began, "my name is Madison Mitchell. I am 9 years old now. My mom says I should write to thank you for teaching us about being kind to everyone." The letter continued in Madison's earnest voice. "I am learning to fly planes in a simulator at the Science Museum. Mom says you inspired me to dream bigger. I want to be like you someday, powerful but kind." Attached was a photo of Madison wearing pilot wings, seated in a simulator, her face glowing with determination and joy. On the back, Karen had written, "She talks about becoming the first pilot in our family. Thank you for showing her what leadership looks like." Time magazine had named Amara Executive of the Year, but this letter represented the victory that mattered most: a child whose worldview had been shaped by witnessing accountability and redemption instead of punishment and shame. The Denver incident became a landmark case study taught in business schools, discussed at leadership conferences, and cited in ethics courses worldwide. Yet its deepest impact remained personal. Thousands of daily interactions improved because people chose dignity over bias. Zoe Monroe's documentary series went on to win a student Emmy and launch her career in social justice journalism. Her follow-up interviews with the original participants revealed the long-term power of choosing education over destruction. Karen became a national speaker on unconscious bias, working with corporations across industries. Her husband's law firm expanded its civil rights practice, focusing on systemic discrimination cases. Their marriage grew stronger as they examined their own blind spots and committed to change. Marcus Thompson was promoted to Regional Customer Service Director, designing training programs that became industry standards. Officer Rodriguez completed a master's degree in conflict resolution, and emerged as an expert in D-escalation. The ripple effects spread outward. Universities created scholarships for underrepresented students in aviation management. The FAA updated inclusion requirements for commercial airlines. International aviation organizations adopted dignity in travel as a core operational principle. But perhaps the most profound shift was invisible to the countless everyday moments when someone paused before judging, chose kindness over convenience, and recognized the humanity of fellow travelers who looked or lived differently than themselves. These stories of transformation proved that small acts of courage could reshape entire systems. Amara's journey showed that power, when guided by wisdom, created enduring change rather than fleeting victories. The Black stories once known only for documenting discrimination were now highlighting leadership, resilience, and the possibility of institutional transformation led by principled action instead of reactive anger. At Gate A7 in Denver International Airport, a small plaque marked the spot where it all began. It read, "Dignity in travel begins with how we treat each other. When you think no one important is watching, remember your voice matters in creating change." Beneath it, an invitation asked, "Have you witnessed moments when someone's dignity was challenged? How did you respond? Share your story. Your experience might inspire the next transformation." When we choose education over humiliation, growth over punishment, we open the door to real change. Your experience could be the spark that helps someone else act with courage and compassion. Subscribe to Black Tales Stories for more accounts of how individual courage transforms entire systems. Hit the notification bell to join a community of changemakers who believe that respect and accountability can revolutionize the way we treat each other. Share this story with someone who needs to see that power, when guided by wisdom, creates lasting positive change. Together, we can make dignity in travel and in life the standard rather than the exception.